There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Shawn the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. If you like character-driven fiction, have I got a book for you. This is a review of a 2020 novel, The Stromness Dinner by Peter Benson. I bought it as soon as it came out. I believe it was released Christmas Eve 2020, so I've had it pretty much that long, and I finally started reading it at the end of 2022 and finished it in January of 2023. It was worth the wait. I love this book so much. If you are not a character-driven reader, and you are much more of a plot person when it comes to your fiction, it might not be a book for you. There is plot here, but it is not high-stakes plot. But I really do dare you to try not to fall in love with the first-person narrator slash protagonist, Ed. Ed Beach. He is living in Bermondsey, which is an area of London, and he works with his dad, and they have a small business, home renovation stuff. And he's muscular, sexy as all get out from the reaction of various people around him, including me, the reader. In fact, you know what's funny? I thought this was a queer novel. I heard something or other that made me think it had gay themes, and it doesn't. But if what I've just described about Ed, I'm not finished describing the main character, Ed, to you, but if what I've said so far is piquing your interest, it's definitely got something for the gay male reader, let me tell you. But there's no gay subtext, I don't think, to anything going on here. He's straight. He has a pretty active sex life. He is not, to my mind, as a somewhat woke gay male reader, misogynistic, or there's nothing like that, no racism. He's just a really sweet young man, not particularly educated, but with the most incredible way of observing and describing the world around him. I just fell into this novel because I loved spending time with Ed as he made his way through the world. So one of the things that happens fairly early in the novel is another reno job lands in his lap. The young man, who seems quite hot, so I thought, oh, this must be the gay story coming up. But no, there's nothing gay, I don't think, between them. Was really impressed with his work. They become kind of drinking buddies. And then this young man hires Ed to go up and renovate his recently deceased father's house on Orkney Island in Scotland so that they can sell it. So Ed takes on the job, and it's well paid, double his usual rate and all expenses paid, and he decides what the hell to go, and he drives up to Orkney, and lots of things happen there. That is basically the plot. I mean, I'm saving some of the goodies but there's nothing particularly more dramatic than that in the story. But Ed, and the way he makes his way through the world, is what I found so beguiling. So to get back to the fact that he's not educated, there's a conversation where he has no idea when Marie Antoinette is referred to. He doesn't have a clue who that is, and there's things like that. And you get a little bit of a sense of the fact that he feels inferior. But this is not a trauma book. This is not about people's psychological wounds. But those aspects of his character are there. And then you're stuck in his beautiful head as he looks around wherever he is, whether it's in the local pub in London, or fixing up this young guy's house in London, or traveling up to Orkney and being in Orkney. He doesn't know the names of a lot of things, and he just describes them so beautifully with such simple, painterly descriptions, and not just on the surface of things, but how these things make him feel. That I loved it. So the Stromness Dinner Stromness is the name of the town or city on the island of Orkney. I think there's more than one island, and that's all very well described in here, where the client's dead father's house is, that he's staying there and getting it into shape to be sold. And then he meets a girl, and so there's more than a little bit of a romance plot at the end, which I am not a big fan of romance plots, not at all. Whether it's two men, two women, I mean, it does usually just kind of makes me gag. But I was so invested in Ed's character, and then the love story, the way that it unfolded, was so perfect for his character. It wasn't Sherlocky, it wasn't sentimental, it was just beautiful and quirky and funny. The story is also very funny, and it has erotic moments, which without being gratuitous or graphic. The other thing that's really wonderful about Ed's personality is he is such a foodie. He is a born cook. He loves good food. He has more foodgasms than orgasms in the novel, trust me. And it's described in such lush, sensuous, earthy detail, like described without any of that pretentious BS that, the foodies that I know talk. This novel is not good to read when you're on a diet. Definitely a novel to be enjoyed for the food in it. It's been a long time since I've read a novel that was so good, so wonderfully written, where I fell so deeply in love with the character and was rooting so strongly for him, and that just carried me from the first page to the end. And I'm going to read you one of the short chapters. They're all very short, with very funny titles, sentence-long titles, most of them. So I'm going to read that to you. But just before I do, a little bit about Peter Benson. Why hadn't I heard of Peter Benson? This was his 10th novel, and he's since had an 11th. Came out sometime in 2022. It was funny when I heard about this book because I heard it might have a gay plot. That wasn't true. When it arrived in the mail, I realized that the author is English, the publisher is Welsh, and more than half of the story, it happens on the Isle of Orkney, or the Islands of Orkney in Scotland. So it was geographically all over the map. Peter Benson is a writer. He's in his late 60s. He was born in Vienna because his parents worked for the British Foreign Office and spent most of his childhood abroad, but he now lives in Kent, and I want to gobble up everything else he's ever done. So, without further ado, I'm just going to read you this short chapter. So this is a chapter when he's staying at the dead man's house alone, and he's sorting through things and getting ready to do a whole bunch of renovation and painting and this and that. There's reference to Marcus and Claire. Marcus is the dead man's son who he'd done the original rental job for back in London, and Claire is that man's sister. So the title, appropriately, is A Dead Man's Stuff. I started in the small bedroom. There was a bed, an empty chest of drawers, a table by the window, and a chair. A smaller table by the bed with a lamp on it. 2 pictures, a rug, a glass tray on the table, and a little straw basket full of cotton reels. A lampshade over the bulb that hung from the middle of the ceiling. I started to fill the first box. I was careful. I used bubble wrap. It took me 20 minutes. Then I made an island of the furniture in the middle of the room and covered it with a couple of sheets. I had a good look and feel of the walls and ceiling. They were sound. All they needed was a rub down and a couple of coats. Apart from a seahorse made from bits of pottery and broken glass, there was nothing in the bathroom that needed packing. The walls were tiled. All they'd need was a wipe down with bleach. The ceiling was good. The bedroom I was using was bigger. There was a wardrobe, a double bed, a chest of drawers, and a solid table. 2 chairs, a couple of rugs, 4 pictures on the wall, a set of shelves, and a few random knickknacks, a pile of books. One of these was called Love in a Dish by someone called M.F.K. Fisher. It was a load of writing about food and wine. The inside said she was one of the greatest food writers ever. I thought I'd give it a go, so I put it on the bed. I finished packing all the upstairs stuff by 9:30 and carried the boxes downstairs. Back upstairs, I moved the heavy pieces of furniture away from the wall. As I moved the chest of drawers, a photograph slipped onto the floor. I think it had been caught in a crack at the back of the chest. I picked it up and smoothed it flat. It was of 3 people on a beach, a woman in a deck chair and 2 kids at her feet building a sandcastle. The shadow of the person who'd taken the photograph could be seen. Whoever that was wearing the sort of hat you see in old films. I turned it over. Someone had written, Eve, Marcus, and Claire, Charmouth, June 1989 on the back. On the wall at home, there was a photograph of Mum, Sally, and me on the beach at Ramsgate that could have been the twin of this one. Mum in a deck chair, Sally holding a bucket and spade while I dug a hole. I looked more closely at the one I'd found. So Eve was Marcus's mother. She had been a very beautiful woman. She was wearing a black one-piece swimsuit, a big floppy hat, and one of those looks that said, "Don't take my picture, oh, all right then." Marcus and Claire looked irritated to have been interrupted. I picked up the book about food and took it and the photograph downstairs. I fetched another beer from the fridge and put the photograph on the kitchen table. I went through to the living room. The fire had almost gone out again. Being good at fire is something a man has to be. I had a lot to learn. I got it going again. I sat down with my beer, put the book on the arm of the armchair, and looked around the room. The ornaments in the cabinet, the books, the pictures, and the other stuff would fit in 3 boxes. The stuff in the kitchen would need another 3, so there'd be a total of 8 boxes. Add the bits and pieces in the shed and anything else I found, and there'd be no more than 10. 10 small boxes of stuff. So Marcus and Claire had taken some stuff already, but the thought that one life could be reduced to 10 small boxes made me sad. I know stuff doesn't make a life, and memories are more important than things, but I still thought it was a poor world where a man could be reduced like a sauce. I know it comes to all of us, and if we don't know it's coming, then we're fools. But being a fool is comfortable and easy. Being a fool is like being a bed, or going to bed, or being a bed that goes to bed. That corncrake was good beer. I had a shower and went to bed. I sat up for half an hour and read the book about food I'd found. It had about a dozen stories in it, but they weren't stories in the way you might think, because they were more about things that had happened to M.F.K. Fisher, who was the writer and actually called Mary Fisher. One of the stories was about this restaurant she went to in France, where she was the only customer, and the waitress was bossy but brilliant. Another was about potatoes and how they're not just food. But the best one was called How Not to Cook an Egg, and started with the line, "Probably one of the most private things in the world is an egg, until it is broken." I thought that was very clever, but what was best about this one was that it had a recipe for the perfect omelet. It was so good that when I'd finished reading, I wanted to go downstairs and make one and sauce it with chicken livers, but I didn't have any chicken livers. It was getting too late, and I did feel tired. So I put the book on the floor, turned out the light, and stared at the ceiling for 10 minutes. So welcome to Ed's World. If that floats your boat, please do give The Stromness Dinner by Peter Benson a try. Thanks for watching.